And hopefully I'm loud enough if you need to stay where you are. So whatever makes you comfortable, that's the way you should do it. I am a firstborn child. And therefore, not only am I the eldest, because I'm a girl, I'm the eldest daughter. And if you are one of those, you know what those words mean. I've been responsible since the second one came. I've been in charge since the second one came. And my little sister is 15 months for me. And my earliest memory is somewhere around 3.5, 4 years old. And we were at my grandmother's house, which had an upstairs. Very few houses have upstairs in Texas, but hers was in Oklahoma. They had a business downstairs, upstairs. And I remember my mother saying, when both my little sister and I took a nap before we went to sleep, I said, I don't need to sleep as much as she does. And she goes, if you wake up, stay and you can play quietly in the room. And when she wakes up, call down to me and I'll come up and get you both. So I did exactly what she said, oldest child, that's what we do. I did exactly what she said do, I played quietly. And when Robin woke up, I went to the top of the stairs and said, Mommy, that baby's awake now. And the baby, my little sister Robin, hearing the screaming, started crying at the top of her lungs. It was my first lesson at that young age of what I needed to do to make sure that somebody was safe. Don't be loud. Don't be loud if you want to keep people safe. And I think we learn those lessons all along life's way, and we figure out how to keep people safe. How to keep people, the people in our lives, the people in our families, the people that we care about, how to help them feel comfortable around us. How to encourage them to feel comfortable out in the world with someone else. We start doing that with other people too, making sure they know how to keep people safe. And if you go back to that image of a sleeping baby, the amount of work that goes on by the people who love that baby, my little sister, the amount of work that goes on to make sure that a baby has everything that it needs so that it can sleep and sleep peacefully. And part of that is we know they grow. Everybody grows and rests and restores in their sleep. But part of that is all the people who've been doing work to keep that baby safe need a break too. They need a little piece of quiet also. So somebody else safe, we're also doing something for ourselves at the same time. It becomes this ecosystem of safety, an ecosystem of calm, an ecosystem of confidence, of knowing that within this particular ecosystem, with this group of people, with this folks that I know that I'm okay. And that even if I have to go out into a place where I'm not okay, I know I can come back to my safe place. I can get back there to that place. That gospel passage is a story about our safe place. It is a story about so many things. It is not unusual for me to give homework on a Sunday morning. And you've got homework because this passage is so long. And all through Lent, we're giving you these long John passages. And to think that a preacher on a Sunday morning is going to cover all of that, it's just a lost cause. There's no way to do that. I'm going to take a thin slice of it, and we'll look at that thin slice. But your job, along with Jesus, is to take this little piece of paper home with you. And how tidy. Usually I'm at churches where I have to tell people, rip this part out, and I stand there until they rip it out. And take that part home with you. And I put it in a pocket so I can see you put it in a pocket. I want to make sure that that piece of homework gets to them. This passage is so incredibly rich and speaks directly into the time that we are living in, that it is worth your effort every morning to read it. It is worth your effort every night to come back to it again. And when you look at it in the morning, ask yourself, what piece of this do I want to carry into the day with me? What piece do I want to carry into the day with me? And at night, when you read it again, ask yourself, what did I see in this day that resonates in here? What did I see here? This is how the story takes root in us and how we learn more about this piece of safety. It's very much tied to a theme of hospitality that you find all throughout this story. And hospitality meaning making a stranger, making a person who is other, feel at home. The hospitality business has taken that completely over, and when we hear hospitality, that's what we think of, is making nice entertainment, making nice dinner, making sure that the bed is comfortable, etc. But biblically, hospitality is something different. So shake off that meaning that Holiday Inn has given us and Sheraton hotels, and pull up that meaning that we get straight from the Hebrew scriptures and that we see threaded all throughout the New Testament, that hospitality, being hospitable to someone, is especially making the stranger feel welcome, making the stranger known, making sure their needs are taken care of, making sure they feel safe, making sure they feel safe. I will say, I get a little, I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings, so afterwards know I love you. And if you need to tell me I hurt your feelings, you can, but know that I love you. But I think this word gets some overuse, and that anytime somebody feels like, I don't want to have this conversation, I don't feel safe. And we duck out of things really quickly so that we don't get jangled up inside. But the whole point of this story that we see, Jesus talking to a Samaritan woman. Do your homework on Samaria. Do your homework on what the Jews felt about them. You've got to know that in order to know just how radical this event is. This is intentional, that Jesus is sitting, he chose to go through Samaria. He could have walked around. He chose to go through with those people that are apostate, that don't believe like the rest of the Jews do, that are mixed race. There could be nothing worse. We know that some of that in our country. It was illegal to be in an interracial marriage. We know some of these things ourselves, but there it was so bad that you could call someone, if you were Jewish, one of the worst insults you could tell someone is, you must be Samaritan. Someone leveled that at Jesus. You'll see it a little bit later in John. You must be a Samaritan. That's the worst thing that you could say to somebody. Not by coincidence does he go into Samaria and sits at that well. That's a whole other thing. Things that happen at wells, especially people falling in love. Jacob found his wife at a well. Moses found his wife at a well. The matchmaker for Isaac found the match for Isaac at a well. So this Samaritan is sitting with Jesus, and those of us who want to kind of go, was Jesus trying to get married to her? Was he trying to be husband number 6? Of course not, but it is saying something about the depth of the love that can be experienced at the well. That something moves. You know that feeling, whether you have the one in your life or not. At some point in your life, you looked at somebody for whatever reason, and it may not be the person you spent any time with in your life, but you looked at someone and felt that little tummy flip thing. When you just kind of see them, and partially it's how they look, but partially it's the way they spoke, partially it's I used to say there was this guy, when he would call me, my knees would melt. I had to just get in a chair. At the sound of his voice. There was something about the tone of his voice. I couldn't think straight. I really and truly could not. We've all had that kind of experience. That's what happens at the well. That's what that woman is reacting to. She's reacting to the tummy flip. She's reacting to that sense that somebody is looking at me and they see directly into me. They see me like they know me. They look into my heart. They look into my soul. They look into my spirit. This might be my person. And if it's not my person, there is something so irresistible about him. I just gotta have more of what he has. That was happening at that well. And when he talked to her, you know, I always think it's interesting the things that we call people. We always call it the Ethiopian eunuch. We don't ever call him the Ethiopian official. The one who immediately, not knowing anything, heard the briefest explanation of who Jesus was and said, "Baptize me." Why are we so focused on that part of his life? That's what we name him. And the woman at the well, as soon as you say the Samaritan woman, people are going to go, "Oh, the woman with the husbands." But here's the interesting thing. It's the woman that engaged Jesus, that talked with him so deeply, that wanted to know about this water that he had, because she was going to go down that well and get him some water, and it was going to be well water. But he's talking about moving, living water, fresh water, not water out of a well. I don't know if you've had water out of a well. If that's what you have to do, you do it. But oh my goodness, water that's come from movement is a different kind of water. It tastes different. And it's not the difference between San Pellegrino and Evian. I mean, it's just that kind of heavy mineral water that's been sitting down in the ground, as opposed to water that's running from a river, where it's this fresh water coming in over and over and over again. She understood about that living water, and she wanted that. I want what he has. The leaps that she makes. Why do we not call her the woman who instantly believed? Why do we not call her the woman who talked with Jesus? Why do we not call her the woman of a different country, the woman of a different belief that Jesus was infatuated with? Why do we not call her the woman that Jesus loves? We call her so many times the woman with the 5 husbands, that Samaritan woman. But even more importantly, she was so affected, so transformed by that moment with Jesus, that she did what anybody does that has just won the lottery. She had to go tell people, "I saw this guy, he knew everything about me. I think he's the Messiah. He's the Messiah. He's the Messiah. I saw the Messiah. I saw someone who knew everyone about me. He's the Messiah. I saw the Messiah. I saw this guy. He knew everything about me. He's the Messiah. I've seen the Messiah." And everybody got up and went to go talk with Jesus and had their own experience of that irresistible knowing that he brought. There had to be something. If you read any of the Gospels, you see this. The people just got up from their jobs. Just got up from their jobs. Listen, none of these men had 401ks. They didn't have houses that they owned. They didn't have 2 cars. They didn't have a vacation home. They didn't have any of that stuff. What they had was, I went to fish today and I have these fish. And so if I don't fish today, I don't have fish, and therefore my family doesn't eat and I don't have income. And Jesus looked at them and said, "Come with me." And they got up and left. I cannot imagine an American Christian responding to Jesus like that today. But what about my bank account? What about all my stuff? I mean, seriously. I think that would be our response. But what about? Those people listening to that woman got up and moved. And by the end of the story, they say to her, "We don't believe he's the Messiah because of what you said. We believe because we've seen him ourselves. So they're not even crediting her that. Maybe that's why we don't call her that, because all of her friends said, we believe because we've seen him ourselves. This story is not just one to bring us comfort and understanding at this time. It's to show us a way to live our lives. That part of our role right now, and you've embraced it in this church, is how do we make places safe for people? How do we help people know that they are known? And that by being known, they don't have to worry when they're around us. That we are in it with them. That whatever they have to face, we're going to face it with them. That is part of the story. The other part of the story is telling them the truth about why we do what we do. It's because at some point, we were at some kind of a well ourselves, and we came to know Jesus. And he became such a part of our lives that it affects how we do life. It changes the way we interact with people. It changes our goals in life. It changes how we respond to people. My husband has this little thing that he does when I go on a rant. He holds up his little microphone and goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, that was from the Bishop of Newark." He does that in the car with me. He doesn't do it in the car as often, because he said I'm a road rager. I am not a road rager. I'm an energetic commentator. Truly energetic. But it was a combination of him doing that and my turning a corner when a pedestrian started to walk by, and she could see my lips move. And I knew I was in a collar. And I thought, gosh, that was a terrible witness. That was a terrible witness. You got to figure out when these things frustrate you, because this in New Jersey is going to keep frustrating you. You got to figure out how you're going to be Jesus in these moments and not add to whatever it is. And that goes even more for when we're in these political conversations, when we're trying to make someone understand what we think, when we're advocating for people, when we are deeply concerned about what happens to people who we know and love. We're worried about their safety. And even in the midst of that, we've got to remember we've been to the well. We have seen the Messiah. We know who Jesus is. And we must find the language to say what it is we believe. This is so hard for Episcopalians. We don't teach you how to do this. We do not teach you, and I apologize for the entirety of the Episcopal Church, that we have not taught you how to talk about faith. We're going to do a little bit of that in coffee hour. But it is something that we have got to learn how to do, not just because we want to change people's minds and have them go rushing over to Jesus and to celebrate church the way we celebrate church, or do faith the way we do faith, but because it was Jesus who walked into the place where people were not like him, walked into the place where people were considered despicable, but walked into the place where people were so other that they were outcast, that they were so other that if you wanted to insult someone, call them by the name of that country. That's where he went. And right now, we, like everybody else, walk around in our world with people who think like us, And there is a shift that is happening at the moment where all kinds of people are looking at what is happening and saying, hey, I know I'm concerned about immigration, but this ignoring of rights, this racial profiling, this dehumanizing of people, I'm not okay with that. I still am where I am politically, but I'm not okay with that. When you hear those kinds of words, people are telling you something about their faith, their sense of morality. These are not purely political conversations that we're engaging in. And for us as Christians, they're not a political conversation purely. They're a faithful conversation. Now, hear me correctly. I am not saying that you have to get into it with people and don't stop until they come into the Episcopal Church for baptism or confirmation. That is not what I'm saying at all. But I am saying, in the midst of the time we're in, we've got to find our first life as an American. And what helped her find that voice? She wouldn't just go, how am I going to tell my people? I've got something important to tell them. She was so affected by who Jesus is, and this man knowing her and caring about her, and making a safe place for her at the well. She was so affected by that, she had to share it. So if there's something we need to work on, it's cultivating our own sense of who Jesus is so that we can tell a story of that. To let Jesus so be a part of who we are that it changes our inside and our outside in such a way that we become irresistible. I remember this man back when I worked in the hotel business. There was a man who was constantly at the negotiating table that worked for our team. And people loved it when he was going to be in negotiations because things were calmer. When Ken was there, things were calmer. Almost always. And I remember one day someone come running into my office, figuring out the secret of Ken. Every lunch, he goes across the street to the church. He's a Christian. That is what is making him so calm. And actually, when we were talking about it, we said, it's not my going to the church that makes me that way. It's the way I practice my faith. I know when I walk into the room that I walk in with the God who created me. So I don't have to win. God is driving this conversation. All I have to do is listen for the way God wants me to be in it. That's what I'm talking about. That's a very big difference in going out and telling someone, you got to believe the way I believe. And if you believe the way I believe, politically, you'll be on the right side. It's completely different ways of approaching the faith life. And that's why I say, we've got to spend the time reading. We've got to spend the time asking, how does this speak to us? This passage is so full. And I'm only dealing with the woman in the well part, and only with a tiny piece of the woman in the well part. But there is something in here to speak to you every single day, if you will listen. And if you will listen. That is your homework, is to do that every single day. I want to say also that all the work is not on us. The collect also is a beautiful one to go back to because it reminds us that this is not all our work. Gracious Father, whose blessed Son, Jesus Christ, came down from the heaven to be the true bread which gives life to the world, evermore give us this bread, that he may live in us and we in him. Every time you receive communion, you're getting that bread. Every time someone, the Baptists would say, because they don't see communion the way we do, every time someone lays a hand on you and prays for Jesus before you've received that bread. The Holy Rollers would say, I grew up with Holy Rollers, not in their church, but going. That's what you did on Sunday in Texas. There was no cable TV. You went to church all day. Your church, their church, next door neighbor's church. You went to church. The Holy Rollers would say, when you get on your knees and you're praying in tongues, that's when Jesus comes into you. Everybody's got a different way that they do this. But here's the thing that you know for sure. Someone baptized you, sealed you in the name of Christ, and said you belong to God forever. Someone did the same thing to you for communion, for confirmation, saying you belong to God forever. God is not going to leave you on your own. God is inside you always. And when we read that prayer, evermore give us this bread that he may live in us and we in him, we remember when you go out into the day, you're not going on your own. Wherever it is, work, school, neighbor's house, wherever it is, grocery store, laundry, wherever it is, in the car driving in New Jersey, Jesus is in you. That does not go away. I want to offer you today, and again, I mentioned the homework. You know, people need to hear things 7 times in a row before they take it in fully. That's why I said homework so many times, so that you take it in fully. But I want to offer to you that when you come up for communion, our practice is to hold our hands out for communion to receive. I want to offer you that when you hold your hands out, and practice this the rest of Lent into Easter, that you also offer yourself to Jesus. Here I am, Jesus. Take up residence in me. And then you receive him, and he is in you and stays in you and goes to the world with you. When we leave this place, go and make a safe place for somebody else. Let them know that they are loved by you and loved